can you become a blockchain developer without any programming experience? I get this question all the time, and my answer is always, of course you can. So I'm going to settle it once and for all. I'm going to prove it to you today. So I've actually invited a guest on my channel today, Chris, who you're going to hear from in a minute. And Chris had zero programming experience, basically had no technical understanding of how the blockchain worked. All right. And then in just a few short months, became a real world blockchain developer and has built his own real world project that he's going to turn into a business. So I'm going to talk to Chris and sort of like ask him, should you learn blockchain first? Like if you have no development background, do you need to learn, all these other skills like web development before you go learn blockchain? Or should you just start with blockchain first? Okay. So I have lots of opinions on this. You're not just going to hear my opinion. You're going to hear from Chris and actually what his experience was like. And so I think you're really going to find this helpful. So before we get into that, if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory from Dapp University. And on this channel, I teach you how to become a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then click the like button down below and click subscribe. And also, Chris is a graduate of my blockchain bootcamp, and he learned all the skills to build this real world project inside the bootcamp. So if you want to master these blockchain skills just like Chris did without any background, I can show you how to do that step by step. All right. Just head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started. Tell us a little bit about your background. You were not a programmer before you started the blockchain bootcamp. You did have a pretty impressive background otherwise. So maybe tell us a little bit about that. Sure. And kind of what your goals were in joining and, what your journey was to becoming, building this project.
Yeah. My background is I spent most of my, I'm in my 50s. I spent most of my time doing sales and marketing. I did graduate with a engineering degree, but I only did a little bit of chip design, semiconductor designs for a few years. And I've been pretty much in sales and marketing. So towards most recently, decided that I wanted to learn programming, and I, in the cryptocurrency, I thought blockchain would be a great place to start. Started really from nowhere. I Windows space, didn't know what any programming, JavaScript, nothing, HTML, none of that. So I did come across Dapp University. I'm not even sure how. And I signed up for for the lessons, and I saw they were building an exchange, and I said, "Oh, this is exactly what I can see what I want to do, but it's different." And so what I've done is I've started with the Capstone project and have changed it, and this is a derivatives trading platform. So and the derivative is puts and calls. Something that's very familiar in the equities market. It's like, S&P or oil. The derivatives market is huge. So I've done this with just this prototype here where ETH is the underlying asset. And then I use DAI.
Chris, this is a pretty sophisticated project for somebody who had never coded before. Right. So, people ask me a lot when they first start, they come across blockchain and maybe they have a little bit of programming experience or no programming experience. They ask me all the time, like, hey, do I need to go learn, web development first? Do I need to go learn this first? Do I need to go learn that first? And I always say, if you really want to learn blockchain, it's best to just start learning blockchain and then learn the other essential skills that you need to accomplish that goal kind of as you go. So that's the approach I take into the blockchain bootcamp. Is that the approach that you took in learning this? And was that successful for you?
And I would even be, if I understand correctly, I would even be a little bit more narrow in my experience, in that what really helped me is that I had this Capstone project, right? And it is a complete project, and you can go back. I couldn't tell you how many times I've moved forward, and then I got stuck, and I had to go back, maybe even almost to the beginning, to reinstall everything. And you say, oh, and I used to be very disappointed with myself, but in fact, it's actually there's some benefit to that, because you really learn how things work. And
that's right.
Use that methodology, keep pushing myself forward and forward and forward. And what really was helpful is I had this template that I could just change I mean, if you looked at my code, it's embarrassing because, I was afraid to delete your code. So it's still there. I'm just not using it. So it's very inefficient. But that said, I'm now, I have another version of it that I'm now starting to strip stuff out that I'm 100% confident. I couldn't tell you how many times I broke it. And the other thing that I would recommend is a real good understanding of Git. I use that so much. In fact, I found it better for me to not debug, just roll back to a previous version that worked and start again from there. So if I do those increments often, because sometimes my debugging just, I'll spend days trying to solve a problem that.
Gets just like having checkpoints in a video game or something like that, where you can go back.
So, but I mean, really got to commit to that. So I have lots of branches. I have GitHub. I'm pushing stuff up there. I'm adding commit all day long. Right. I'm rolling back many times because I find it kind of, I don't like it when things don't compile. Always. That's another thing is, always keep a compiled version. Which is hugely important. And the other thing that I would add is, and again, this is not as I haven't really figured out Truffle well enough that there's not a lot of debug in Truffle for the Solidity code. At least I don't know how to do it. So maybe it's getting better.
It's definitely getting better. In fact, Truffle just released something where you can see stack traces in your failing tests now. So I'm not sure if
that would be a great class if I could recommend that. I've heard of that. I've actually tried to use Truffle in a different way and I broke it. So I said, what, I can't debug here myself. So I'm just using the quick start. And then the other thing that really was a game changer for me was, and again, it's not Solidity related, was Redux. Redux makes the life so much easier once you really commit to the concept. Because, if you look on my page, you've got 5 different objects. Mm-hmm. And if you create a variable in one object and you need it in another object, if you don't use Redux, it's painful.
Yeah, totally. So I'll explain that really quickly for other people who are watching who maybe they're not in the boot camp, but maybe they've done some of the free tutorials on, my YouTube channel. So, some of my tutorials, I show you how to use React and build an interface like this. You can see Chris has got his Exchange interface, his options platform here. In the boot camp, we start with a basic Exchange. And so like, if you were going to build that, like any other tutorials I've done on the channel, maybe like the marketplace tutorial or the to-do list, whatever it is, we use React, but, we pull in some blockchain data and we keep it in the front end. Like there's a reason, we pull some data off the blockchain, we put it in the client side application. For most of the tutorials, we just use the React state object because it's really simple. It's just a little bit of data. We just need to update that. But for a much more complex application like this, like you can see Chris here has on his screen, I think you need something more sophisticated than that. And I like Redux, and I teach people how to use Redux, and we do that in the boot camp. And that's what this does. It basically creates like a front end database for your project where you can pull data off the blockchain, really any data that you want to, but primarily in this case, it's about sort of doing state management or creating kind of like a front end database mirror of what's happened on the blockchain inside your app.
So like I said, I've got quite a bit to go. There's many other functions that have to be done in option trading, things like settlement and exercising. And I've got that all done in the Solidity code. I just don't have it at the front end. That said, I didn't test as well as I should have. I've kind of, rightfully or wrongfully, I find I want to see it work. I kind of test as I go, which is probably a shortcoming of myself.
Well, hey, especially I think hand testing things, especially when you're just starting out, sometimes like writing tests alongside your actual development when you're just getting started can be a little cumbersome. It can slow the process down and be almost just too hard. It was for me when I first started programming. So I didn't really adapt much of a testing philosophy until I've probably been programming for a few years, to tell you the truth. Okay. For like production projects, I worked on lots of stuff where I didn't write too many tests, and tests aren't always necessary for everything. So right. I definitely wouldn't feel discouraged about that. They're pretty important for smart contracts when you're deploying stuff to the main network, but you don't always have to write the tests first and then write the code. There's a lot of people who say they're truly test driven, but I don't know. I
was this vision. I was just trying to get there as fast as I could, so
yeah,
obviously.
And you don't always have to, and I think it's about choosing the right strategy for what you're trying to do.
Right. Yeah. Obviously I'm going to have to do some sort of audit and testing before I go to the mainnet, because you'd be dealing with some real money. So,
yeah. So let's talk about that. I want to talk about kind of what your goals and ambitions are with this project, because a lot of people come to Dapp University for a few reasons. A lot of them want to become blockchain developers and get hired at a company, but you came at this with wanting to build your own product that you're actually going to launch into the real world. So tell me what your ambitions about that are and sort of your journey.
Sure. So we. Our fundamental idea is that we were developing a protocol we call the DSF protocol, Decentralized Settlement Facility Protocol, and it's doing all the smart contracts for the puts and calls option. So what it does, it creates them, it writes them, it stores the money, and then it settles them. And so what does settle mean? So let's say on May 31st. Right, the option has expired, and if it expires in the money, meaning there's value to it, there's a whole procedure of how you distribute those funds to both sides of the party. Remember, every trade there's two sides, so everything needs to get settled. You have to unwind the trade. We basically burn the option, so the option goes away, and then new options get created. So there's this cycling of contracts or options, and so as they get burned, there's money in them, so they need to be settled in a proper, fair way. And so, I need to, that's kind of the next step for that. And then ultimately, I'd like to get this out onto the mainnet. There'll be some steps along the way. Next thing will probably be the test net, and get people trading on it, and along those ways. And then. Then we have some other, great ideas. I think there's the derivatives market is huge. It's $100 trillion market out there. People are betting on, hedging and on all sorts of underlying assets. So I think we've got some ideas like this. You could do this for Bitcoin, for example. Mm-hmm. So if you imagine having this trading pair of ETH and DAI, you could maybe use a ERC20 token that was like a wrapped Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah. So, tokenize it basically.
Yeah, exactly. So then you can now trade all your Bitcoin or any other token. And then ultimately I have some ideas about how you could do kind of private tokenization on the public blockchain.
Right.
Electric companies could trade and sell their electric tokens, and the way they would get redeemed, you could go to the SCE, and each token will lower your bill a little bit, as a payment method. So it's creating more efficient markets, if you will. So so there's a lot of, I think, applications for this. And again, my motivation's a little different as I've gotten older. Is that I wanted to build the technology first, and that's kind of been my mission.
Yeah. Well, yes, it looks like you've done a great job at that. And I'm really impressed, especially from somebody who, couldn't code before and then just jumped in there straight into the deep end, which, that's my style. That's kind of how I learned to code from the beginning. I started off, I didn't necessarily want to get a job as a developer when I taught myself how to code. I wanted to build my own product, and I just jumped in, and I ended up working as a developer on down the road. But when I started, that's exactly what I did. And I did a big intensive course just like this that teaches you how to build a real world product. And that's why I'm a big believer in that approach, because if you want to, either way, if you want to build your own product or you want to work for someone else or you're building a project in that, the best way to do it is just learn by doing.
Yeah, I would recommend definitely if, to the other people at Dapp University or people who want to join is what really kind of drives me or helped me a lot was I had a project. I had something I wanted to build, and I may not know how to do it, but I know where I wanted to go. So like I said, your exchange, when I came across it, I said, I could see, this vision has been, actually it's changed. I have to admit, it's taken me a lot longer because my first couple versions were crap. It didn't the way I wanted it to. It didn't really, it was too complicated. This is the simple version. So it's hard. It sometimes gets complicated. It gets hard to present your ideas.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it definitely can be for sure.
I'm very thankful, and I'm glad I came across it. It's been really helpful.
Yeah, that's great. And Chris is also Chris is inside the blockchain mastery program too. So some people get confused. They say, "Oh, what is this? What is that?" Just so for anybody who's interested and wanting to take the next step, basically the blockchain bootcamp is the step-by-step curriculum from going from zero, not being a programmer, not knowing anything about blockchain, and you come out with the real-world skills that you need to do, just like what Chris has done. Whether you want to, get a job or build your own product, that's what that program is. And the blockchain mastery is a little bit different. It's more of a community-based thing where you get to interact with one another, get kind of weekly updates. We do like Q&A live streams in there, stuff like that. Yeah, so that's what that is versus the boot camp. And people always ask me if you're going to do one or the other. I recommend the boot camp. What would you say, Chris?
Yeah, well, for what I needed, this is what I want. I mean, if you
totally.
My recommendation to all, if you will, if you wanted to really know it and do it, you got to find a project to work on. And, it could be as simple as, collecting data and writing it on the blockchain and having and then pulling it back, whatever that data you want to be. It forces you how to work with APIs, it makes you how you build a project. Makes you run the interface. You have to write the Solidity code. You end up learning a lot because going through the tutorial, which I did many times, it's great, but you don't know it until you don't really know it until you do it, right?
Yeah, totally. And that's what I always recommend people is build your portfolio project. So the portfolio may just be for yourself, right? If you're trying to build your own project, but if you're trying to get a job, it's definitely essential. And that's what I always say is, and that's one of the reasons I went with an exchange in the boot camp is because it serves a real world use case right now. You can actually use it in the real world. And it's a great platform for modifying yourself and extending to do just what you've done, which is you can take something where you learn a lot of skills and then build on top of it. And that's where you get that extra knowledge of having to do something unguided.
Yeah. So, and again, I'll just reiterate the one kind of theme I got from the boot camp, from the Capstone project, is this rhythm and methodology of creating selectors and bringing in the props and then using the props, the state I've got the connect to
with Redux, where you connect your components to the Redux
exactly
store.
Right. And that whole, like I said, it's a basic rhythm you use for everything. Like you even talk about it, how you repeat and repeat these templates. And that's basically what I did completely.
Awesome. Yeah. Very cool, Chris.
Right.
Well, Chris, I've really enjoyed this. This has been a great conversation. I'm so glad you showed this to us. Again, I'm really impressed that you kind of started from scratch and have gotten to this point. And that's really what I wanted to show pretty much everybody who's watching this is that, yeah, you can start with no programming experience and become a blockchain developer, because that's what you are now. Claim it or not, Chris.
So if anyone who sees this that is interested in options in general, has questions, maybe just reply, I guess, and
sure,
and forward me the links or the questions. I'll certainly.
Yeah, totally. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either to me at Gregory at Dapp University, or maybe if Chris has a contact he wants to pass along later, I can put it on the video description as well.
Okay, will do.
Yeah.
Very
awesome.
Good.
Well, like I said, it's been great. Everybody, join me in thanking Chris for being on the channel today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up for now. Thanks again, Chris. And until next time, thanks for watching Dapp University.